So Aston rolled into Barcelona with a car that looked suspiciously like a Red Bull. Not just a bit like the Red Bull, actually quite a lot. So of course the memes came flooding in, and then came the speculation, especially due to the previous examples of cars that look a lot like other cars. That pink Mercedes, of course. So did Aston Martin actually copy the Red Bull, or is there something else to it? Well, I think there is. Now let's face it, Aston have been needing a big upgrade to get back on the pace with the midfield. They have only been on a similar pace to Williams this season, when I'm sure their hopes were for far more than that. The car is understood to be a fair bit overweight, but also losing a lot of pace down to it porpoising pretty severely. So here is the car that Aston released and have run so far this season. The double floor side pod, as it was called early on, was essentially a way of driving more airflow over the rear of the floor. It allowed a continuous channel of air to flow under the side pod and towards two key areas, the beam wing and the top surface of the diffuser. It also came with the added benefit of using some of this airflow to separate the wake from the rear wheels and the diffuser. So the engineers were really trying to double down on the downforce at the rear of the car. But this has come with its downsides. There are opportunities with a Red Bull style floor that allow for a more balanced downforce creation, but we'll get into that in a moment. The next downside is drag. The Aston has been slow on the straights because of it. Really, it's a similar issue to what Mercedes have been suffering with. But now, after seeing how well the Red Bull is doing, it seems like Aston have just copied the idea. And thanks to all the legends on Twitter for these images. We have linked to all of their accounts below, and you should go and follow them on Twitter. The new sidepod is very Red Bull looking, with the ramped downwash style, and the floor looks similar too. But of course, Aston have made loads of other changes to make this happen. Stuff like the new rear wing, as well as having to entirely repackage the stuff inside the sidepods to allow for this new design. Oh, and the mirrors, just look at these. They're the same picture. Now, I was ready to leave it at that. Aston was slow, Red Bull were fast, so it seems like they took inspiration from the faster team and redesigned the car. And yes, this is copying, but that's something that has always been a part of the sport. But then more information came out. I didn't know this, but the technical director at Aston was working for Red Bull just a couple of months ago. And it all started looking suspicious. So the FIA have looked into it. But Aston have been able to prove that this is the B-spec version of the Aston in the wind tunnel last November, long before the engineer was working at Red Bull. But even if that wasn't the case, I still don't buy it. And that's mainly down to it being an entirely different concept to the current Aston. So what does that actually mean? Well, let me explain. So we know that the previous Aston design was about driving airflow over the diffuser and the beam wing, but this time they are moving to a Red Bull style concept. This is about creating downwash with the side pods, and this allows for more downforce creation midway down the floor. Just look at the path of the air here. This is what I'm talking about with the downwash. So why is this downwash needed? What exactly is it useful for? We know the tunnels are used to create the majority of the downforce on these cars, and this is done by accelerating the air under the car and creating lower pressure. So it would make sense that the edges of the floor are there to seal it, to keep that low pressure in for more downforce. But what teams discovered a couple of years back is that you can create downforce by dragging airflow out from under the front of the floor. Just take a look at this change in the floor. You can see on the Red Bull and now on the Aston the clear split between the front and the rear of the floor. The front half is there to extract the airflow from under the car for extra downforce. And the teams have been doing this without having a significant impact on the main downforce generating elements under the floor. Very clever. However, this concept does leave them with less rear downforce than before, but most likely a better overall balance. And this is likely preferable, especially as the 18-inch tyres seem to be much more understeery than last year's. So with that entire philosophy change, do you really think Aston have seen Red Bull in the first test, reverse engineered the setup and implemented it on their significantly different car, all in a couple of weeks? To me, that looks extremely unlikely. And as I mentioned earlier, the FIA did look into it, and Aston could prove they had the two concepts in the wind tunnel as early as October last year. So fair play, Aston have generated two entirely different cars and not like the first one they tried. So I'm moving on to number two. Well, we'll just have to see if it does anything over the next 4 races or so. And of course, don't judge it just based on this weekend. They won't really know what they have for a couple of races at least. You should watch this video about how Red Bull have exploited Ferrari's main weakness. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.